We are San Jose.
Siamo San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
Welcome to We Are San Jose. These are your stories.
My name is Anthony Trevino, and I'm here to talk about the UGWA, the Underground Wrestling Alliance. We've been in San Jose since '96. We started off just like all the other, backyard wrestling spots of the time. We're just a bunch of dumb little kids beating each other up, copying what we saw on TV, and it just kind of evolved from there. As a kid, I went and recruited all my friends, got them all together, started putting together little matches and contracts and things like that, and started organizing actual events. And as time went on, wrestling lost a bit of its popularity, and we just kept doing it. And we kind of went into the 2000s and found more places around the Bay Area. We went to Sunnyvale and Palo Alto and a few other spots around the Bay that had similar places to ours. And we went and befriended these kids and just kind of joined up and kept doing the wrestling thing. And we went on to eventually get our own yard. And because what we started off doing, we were on East Side Drive on the east side. I don't know if you guys know where that's at, but East Side Drive is this long stretch, and it's a pretty bad neighborhood, but we just went from house to house and basically killed all the grass in the front yard over time. And eventually, after all the grass was dead there, and we got a little too old to be doing that out in public in the middle of a highly gang-influenced area, we kind of moved on. And once we got our own yard at my uncle's house, we started doing shows again in the backyard. And eventually we got tired of getting slammed into concrete and into grass, so we went out and found our own wrestling ring. And once we did that, that's when things really blew up for us, because I started getting hit up by people from Modesto, people from Fresno, people from Sacramento, people from Oakland, all over the place, and that were just, they wrestled at similar places to ours, and they were just looking for like a new home base, I guess. And we welcomed everybody in. So all these people from all around the Bay came to San Jose and started wrestling for us. And we were about, I think, like 30 guys deep for a while. But the thing was, we were wrestling in front of nobody. Our shows were just for us, just for fun. And we were fine with that. And it went from the ring we got in about 2006, and we went from there to about 2009, where a lot of my wrestlers, they decided, they wanted to try to do this professionally. So they went off to schools, and I lost a good chunk of my guys, and it was looking like we were going to wind down and maybe end this thing. And luckily I found another spot that had a ring. They were pretty high production value for what they were doing, but none of them liked the guy that ran the place. So they all kind of hit me up, and they kind of had a little mutiny over there, and they jumped ship to us, and that's what kept us afloat going into 2010. But then again, still wrestling in front of nobody. So what do I got to do to get a crowd? I got to figure out what breadcrumbs to put down to get people to follow to the show. So we decided to get a ladies division going, and I got a bunch of my prettiest friends that I knew, and they were, God bless them, they were willing to get in bathing suits and wrestle in little kiddie pools and baby oil and things like that. And then all of a sudden, I had 100 people in my backyard that didn't give a crap about wrestling, but they were there for the girls. And what we ended up doing, we baited them with the girls, and by the end of the show, they were all wrestling fans. And we don't have the girls wrestling anymore. They all grew up, and they all went on to have families and things like that. But we still got all those fans there. And, if the girls are watching, thank you, girls. You guys are the reason why people care about us right now. But So we went on, we got fan base now, and decided we're going to start taking this thing a little bit more seriously. So since 2010, we've been, progressively trying to grow, take the matches we're doing a little bit more seriously, take the characters we're putting out there more seriously, try to listen to the fans we have, and try to mold the product around what they're into. And we got a lot of a pretty big selection of types of people that come to our shows. We got a lot of metalheads, a lot of punks, it's a lot of East Side folks, a lot of downtown folks come to our shows, and we pretty much give our fans a little bit of everything. So if you were ever a wrestling fan growing up, then there's something at the show for you. If you weren't a wrestling fan, you can just come and make fun of it, and maybe you will become one. Who knows? But I like to say that what we do is wrestling for non-wrestling fans, pretty much, because it's the good time comes first, the party comes first, and then everything's kind of falls into place on its own. So with that being said, we were now that we got all these fans, and we're listening to what the fans want to see, and we're putting together the shows more catered to them. We decided the next step would be, moving on to get out of the backyard, because there's not a whole lot of respect for what we do in the pro wrestling circuit, and I'm determined to kind of go out there and show that we might not be a professional wrestling organization, we might not have the professional training, but I dare you to put on a more entertaining show than us. Especially in San Jose, because I've seen pro wrestling places come here and fail, and we have yet to do that. So we contacted the people at the Blank Club. They said they've been trying to get in touch with us or work out some deal with us for a year, and I didn't even know about that. I just found out about that recently, which kind of blew my mind. The problem with the Blank Club was it was a little too small for the wrestling ring, so there wouldn't have been any room for us there. So that was never even a topic that got brought up. But now that they moved to the Ritz is huge, if you've ever been there before. And there's plenty of room for a wrestling ring, and there's plenty of room for fans. So now that they've given us a new home in the heart of downtown San Jose, we plan to take full advantage of that. And we're going to be doing shows there monthly, and we're going to change the landscape for wrestling in San Jose and hopefully in the whole Bay Area. I've gone around to a lot of other spots in the Bay, APW, for example, places like that, and I've volunteered my help, and I've volunteered my camera work. And what some of them realized, some of them didn't realize, is while they were doing their production meetings and going over the backstage mechanics of the show, I was a fly on the wall absorbing up a lot of information, and I've taken that information with me, and I plan on using it to bring the UGWA to its full potential. And so if you guys aren't busy on Saturday night, I don't know when this is airing, hopefully it'll air before the show, but if not, we'll be at the Ritz monthly from now on, so look out for the UGWA. Hail Ugwa, and that is my San Jose story.
Hello. My name's Kurt Vartan, and my story is one I think that's typical for Silicon Valley these days. I grew up in New York City, and I moved out here to California back in '98 to go work at Cisco. I ended up meeting my wife, and in 2006 we started a pizza shop, A Slice of New York, in San Jose. We now have two, one in Sunnyvale too. Just a couple days ago I saw a KQED video, and I want to read a quote that I heard. It was from President and CEO of former President and CEO of KQED, Richard Moore, who died earlier this year. He said, "The world is vanishing immediately upon us, our efforts to enunciate it clearly." Let me read that again. "The world is vanishing immediately upon our efforts to enunciate it clearly." And I thought about that, and I'm like, what does that really mean? And what it means to me is, when we identify an issue before we actually have time to do anything about the issue, it's too late to actually do something. And it followed a segment where 4 different mayors were interviewed. They were Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Cupertino, and East Palo Alto. And they talked about the housing costs and traffic and the expenses that are cost of living, the lack of mass transit, the lack of open spaces, and the quality of life issues that affect us today. And the problem that I think resonated with all of them is, or at least with me, in seeing all of them speak, is there's a problem with general city planning and just turning over kind of quick developments, develop something really quickly. And it seems to lack community participation, a really effective community participation. And what I mean by that is engaging the community as part of the design process, not as kind of a formality as part of the entitlement process. And you look at corporations like Facebook and Google, they're creating parks and open space and quality of life right there on their corporate campuses. And why do they do that? They do that because we're humans and humans like to be happy. And amenities that exist that they're creating there are not found at their current home. So if they can make them happy at work, a happy human means potentially more revenue, more dollars. So the opportunity for change in our cities needs to come from us, because our cities are kind of not leading us in the right direction right now in terms of planning and vision. I believe there's a strength in the community. The communities, the stakeholders, as well as the people that do business in the area. The developers see right now, I think, the communities as liability. They're kind of an unknown. They tend to block things, they sue, they complain, they don't like, they just want to stop. But the community, I think, has a huge value in this development process and how we grow our environment. I got involved with a piece of property back in 2003 called the Barrick site, Bay Area Research and Extension site, also known as the Deciduous Fruit Field Station, part of the UC Ag system. It's a 17-acre site directly across the street from Valley Fair and Santana Row on Winchester and Stevens Creek. Fast forward, now in 2015, there's only 6 acres of that 17-acre site left. It was open space. 11 acres has been developed. But I believe this little piece of property can really change the area and the future of the overall valley. I'm going to share that in just a minute. Just to give a little background, Valley Fair and Santana Row are being looked at as an urban village in San Jose. That means there's going to be balance of commercial activities, residential activities, all around transit. Valley Fair is a 70-acre site. We all know it. It's expanding about 30% in the next 2 to 3 years. They're expanding 650,000 square feet of retail. They're installing a 3-story Bloomingdale's, 150,000 square foot Bloomingdale's, flagship, bigger than San Francisco, luxury movie theater. 10,000 parking spaces will exist on their site. It's the second highest grossing mall in all of California at $900 million in gross revenue a year. They're investing $600 million by 2017. So moving on to Santana Row directly across the street, that's a 42-acre site. They're in the process of building 750,000 square feet of Class A retail. When you hear Class A retail, that's like tech space, like Facebook or Google could move in there. They're adding another 100,000 square feet of retail space. They're adding 1,800 parking spaces. They just took a 99-year ground lease on the Century Theater site directly across the street. They're putting potentially up to 1,000 apartments on that site and have a 130,000 square foot office building on that same site with another roughly 2,000 parking spaces over there. And the reason I bring this up is we have massive amounts of development in this little, not even a half a square mile, that generates roughly 25 million visitors a year. So just to put that in perspective, New York City, my hometown, in 2013 had their highest visitor turnout ever. 54 million people. So put that in perspective. That's all of New York City, over 300 square miles, has the same amount of visitor traffic as or twice as much as about what Valley Fair and Santana Row have combined. That's just staggering. So the 6 acres that I'm talking about, I would like to talk about how that can turn into something called an agrihood. Now, an agrihood, I believe, can change everything. It's an urban farm-based housing community, which means you have denser housing, potentially larger buildings on a smaller footprint, and preserve your open space. It provides things that are the pedestrians want. Pedestrian amenities, walkable spaces, public places, daily farmers market, a wellness center, a cafe, a bakery, artist studios, affordable housing, market rate housing, veteran therapy programs that they don't have today, senior housing, mixed income, intergenerational, all of these things can exist in one location. It's a project that I'm working on. You might have heard it called Win6. It's win6village.org. And I encourage you to learn more about that from more details on our website. But we live in the innovation capital of the world, and I think everybody recognizes that. And we tend to innovate technology, but we're not innovating our land use. We should be leading the way on all things green and all things environmentally focused. And I don't think we're taking the opportunity to do that because we're really busy doing business stuff, making money for the area, which is huge. So now is the time to set the standard, raise the bar on how we can create win-win-win solutions for all of the partners, the community that lives here, and the business that does business here, and the public that consumes the services that are in our area. But it requires community involvement up front. If we want to do that and preserve our open space, we need to involve the community. Again, just to get back to that quote, the world is vanishing immediately upon our efforts to enunciate it clearly. We have the opportunity to build a vision, and we can create a model for the future. And everyone wants this, but we don't know where to start. Well, we have to start with the community. The community are the ones that creates the power and the strength on making change at a massive scale, at the city level and even at the county level. So understanding the issues, building the community together with the development community so that these two, what are usually at odds with each other, can come together in partnership, will help the area grow and grow sustainably. Since I've been here, we've almost run out of power. We've almost run out of water right now. And yet we're still scheduled to grow 650,000 people by the year 2040. That's a staggering number. How are we going to accept all of that growth if we don't properly plan on how to preserve our quality of life? That includes open spaces, pedestrian focus, and things that keep humans active and alive. So I'm here to start the process at the ground level, with community support, hopefully. Hopefully you want to participate in this. I hope everybody hearing this wants to participate in this. I want San Jose to thrive. And I think we have the ability to do that because we have the innovation and the mind share to make this happen. We need to be the change, not wait for the change. If we wait for City Hall to do this, we're going to be picking up the pieces. Let's be proactive and reach out. I hope I can partner with you, and please reach out to me when you can. Thanks for letting me share my story of San Jose.
Hi, my name is Sean O'Kane, and this is my story of my family in San Jose. Around 1912, my grandparents, Michael O'Kane and my grandmother Delia Foley O'Kane, came from Ireland to San Jose. My grandfather Michael was from Draperstown, Northern Ireland, and my grandmother from Inishmaan on the Aran Isles. So they had my dad in San Jose in 1913 off of Grant Street, which is, the house is now part of 280. So my dad was baptized in St. Joseph's Cathedral in 1913 and just started their life here. And as my dad met my mom in San Mateo or in Belmont, right near I think it was the World's Fair in 1939. So then they settled in a couple of places, but finally in San Jose in 1947, my dad came back home to San Jose. And we lived off of Newhall Street near the Alameda. And it was still very small. San Jose was still very, very small. And just, growing up as kids, we lived near the railroad tracks there off of Newhall. And we would have interactions with, they were called hobos. And these were adventurers. They were men who didn't have psychological problems, but they were adventurers. They were the Jack Londons of that time. And they would ride the rails, and they would occasionally come by the house and ask for food, and we'd be happy to make them sandwiches and give them drinks and send them on their way. And interestingly enough, they would put a mark on the telephone pole right near our house. We later found out they would put these little symbols saying that this was a kind house. So that was quite nice. During the war, my dad worked at Hendy's Ironworks in Sunnyvale, and they made it was for the war effort, and he was drafted in the Navy. and they made, and tested torpedoes and tanks and all kinds of things. And at that time, my mom worked at Libby's, the Libby's cannery there in Sunnyvale. And my dad was part of the Knights of Columbus for years and years and years, in the fourth degree, I'd say. And I'm still wearing his ring today. And when he passed away, he actually had this on, and I thought, well, this was the ring that I always I put on as a kid, and I put tape around it, and I would kind of pose in front of the mirror, the GQ, here it's like 10 years old and just with the ring. So, when my dad passed away, my mom says, come on over and take a look at some of your dad's stuff. Well, I couldn't fit in any of his clothes. I'm 6'7", my dad was 5'10". And I did see, and I saw the ring. It was like, my precious, the ring was there. The one that I always, looked at as a kid. And I said, I just want that. And so I have his ring from the Knights of Columbus. It's a great memory and a great thing. So 5 kids in the family: Michael O'Kane, Colleen O'Kane, Joseph O'Kane, Sean, and my sister Teresa, 5 of us. We all went to St. Leo's. And we all graduated from St. Leo's. My father and my mom were very instrumental in fundraising to build the school, St. Leo's, off of Ray Street in San Fernando. And at that time, fundraising was serious. I mean, they would bring in stars, like Red Skelton would come in and do a show at St. Leo's to fundraise. Father Manning was the parish priest back then. Just amazing times. But we all went there. We all went to St. Leo's and graduated from there. And when we went there, my sister and I were there, there was a Monsignor Kilcoyne, very Irish. He was a military chaplain in World War II. So he's very strict. And at any time he would come out of the church, he would, the whole school and the playground would stop to attention, and he would inspect us and our shoes right in the middle of recess. And it was really an interesting guy. And I was an altar boy there, so was my brothers. And I think that's where I learned how to wine taste as an altar boy. But we would, I would serve 6:30 Mass, and we'd ride our bikes 6:30 in the morning, go serve Mass, and we'd have to do that. But anyway, my older brother Mike went to Bellarmine, and he ran track there, graduated in 1958. Really a great track man. He was recruited to San Jose State. Bud Winter and Bert Bonanno recruited him from Bellarmine. It's really cool. And then my brother Mike, or Joe, went to Mitty, and I went to Mitty for a couple of years, and then Santa Clara High. High school, that was great. And then I'm just trying to think of some of the other stories. Monsignor Kilcoyne, he had, he was the only parish priest in the area that had a Cadillac. He had a Cadillac and an El Camino and the priest car. And, so he was a good fundraiser himself. But my brother Joe O'Kane, he was the film and video commissioner for San Jose and the U.S. at one point. Great guy and amazing resource of talent. And I currently work at Cadence Design Systems and High Tech, and I do video and voiceover work. My sister Teresa is the world traveler. She goes to Africa quite often. She's going to be going there again, but she wrote a book called Safari Gemma. Anyway, it's all about San Jose. And when I grew up, it was a small town still. My dad worked at Goldine's home furnishing store downtown. And that's where everyone went to buy their home furnishing. And we would go to visit my dad there and see him work. And then we go to the old Fox Theater. This is when all the theaters were downtown. The Fox, the UA, which is now where the Fairmont is, the studio is still there, the building. They had the Padre, the Crest, the Liberty. It was really, truly an amazing time in San Jose. I remember vaguely, when President Kennedy, when he was campaigning in 1960, came in a motorcade. It was a big parade down First Street. And everybody was just hanging out the windows, you know, and it was cool. Great stuff then. My dad eventually got into theater after he left the, being a salesman for over 30 years. And he got into theater and he actually won some awards, which is pretty cool. So one really quick story where my sister Teresa and her husband live on Asbury, and it's a great old house, over 106 years old. Well, right 2 doors down was where Jack London's girlfriend lived. And Jack London would take the train down from Oakland to the College Park train station, walk in, and pick up his date there. And this is in the story, Call of the Wild, is where Buck was led to the College Park train station, and that's where he was stolen in the book. So it's all there, San Jose. So many more stories, and I'm sure you've heard an amazing stories. We just met Lon and Paul Normandin. What great people. And they actually knew, that was when San Jose was actually a small town. They knew my father. And Lon Normandin bought all his home furnishings from my father, and here I'm meeting him in the lobby here. That's what San Jose was all about. Everyone knew each other. And that was absolutely amazing. So that's my story of San Jose and my family. And my name is Sean O'Kane, and I am San Jose.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time.